The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Eastworks, 500,000 square feet dedicated to artists, entrepreneurs, and nonprofits where community happens. Learn more at eastworks.com.
Welcome to the Fabulous 413. I'm Khalees Smith.
And I'm Monty Belmonte. Later in the show, wood, fire, and metal.
We'll take you to Wales, Massachusetts, where a 26-foot tree was felled and where members of the Nipmuc community are in the middle of an ancient tradition using fire to turn that log into a type of boat called a mishoon.
And for metal, we'll give you a preview of next weekend's heavy music campout in Montague, RPM Fest.
But first,
before we get into the political things, you are a big music fan.
Oh, yeah.
And Khalees just portrayed Bjork at Transformance
So cool.
earlier this week.
I think technically I portrayed her backing band.
Right. But your band, Extemper, portrayed Bjork. And
Yes.
you, David Daly, have an actual local Bjork story that is notable.
I do. Well, I mean, I'm old enough that I saw the Sugar Cubes play at the student ballroom at the University of Massachusetts.
That's so cool.
With
Sugar
Miracle
Cubes
Legion
is Bjork's
opening.
old band. Yeah, and Miracle Legion, local band.
Local band with Mark Mulcahy and Ray Neal. Of course, not long after that tour ended, Miracle Legion and the Sugar Cubes did an EP together covering, I believe, each other's songs. And I think there's one really strange, long Icelandic track on that album as well.
Is that an available EP that people can listen to now?
I have a copy. Come on over to my house and we'll all play it.
Digitize
I invite everybody.
it.
That's amazing because I watched Khalees.
Digitize it and share.
I watched Khalees' band portray Bjork with Mark Mulcahy, who was backstage at Transformance earlier this week.
Mark has played with actual Sugar Cubes.
That is amazing.
So cool.
Well, Bjork aside, now we launch into the fun stuff.
Is this the fun stuff?
Yeah. We like to say that the Fabulous 413 is arts and culture heavy and politics light, but on Thursdays we usually dive into politics with McGoverning with McGovern. In lieu of Congressman Jim McGovern, who's on a congressional delegation that I'm sure we'll hear more about next week on the show, we're going to talk about everyone's favorite political jigsaw puzzle, gerrymandering.
Yet another great Bay State invention.
Yeah.
And it just so happens that one of the nation's foremost critics of slicing and dicing electoral maps lives right here in the 413 in Haydenville. David Daly is the author of the national bestseller, Rat Effed.
We could call it rat effed, or we could bleep it out with any sound that you would like.
A Bjork squeal.
You got it.
You got it. Is the author of the national bestseller, Rat Why Your Vote Doesn't Count, which helped spark the drive to reform gerrymandering. He regularly discusses democracy and voting rights on CNN, MSNBC, NPR, and here with us on NEPM.
His work has appeared in The New Yorker, The New York Times, The Washington Post, The Atlantic, and The Guardian, amongst others. He's the former editor-in-chief of Salon. His most recent book is called Anti-Democratic, Inside the Far Right's 50-Year Plot to Control American Elections. It's in some way the sequel to Rat. And here to connect the dots between the Supreme Court under Chief Justice Roberts, which is the main theme of Anti-Democratic, the book, and the recent moves the Republicans have been making in Texas when it comes to gerrymandering, is Haydenville's David Daly. Thank you so much for coming back on the show.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
You're our McGovern this week.
The role of James McGovern will be played by me.
And fitting because gerrymandering plays a large part in both of those two books that we mentioned, both Anti-Democratic and Rat.
When you think it can't get any worse, they find a way to make it worse, right? We only had 37 competitive congressional races in the entire country in 2024. Out of 435 districts, that's a really low percentage.
And to keep it a little nonpartisan,
Yes.
the 2nd Congressional District, which McGovern is from, was not considered to be a competitive district, even though he did have an independent running against him.
Yes.
The 9 congressional districts in Massachusetts, not especially competitive. I would not say that they're gerrymandered, but they're certainly not competitive.
I mean, they were at one point.
Well, and President Trump criticized Massachusetts for its own form of gerrymandering, and there's an argument to be made that Worcester is nowhere near Northampton, and that Northampton was added to Worcester because Worcester is purpling and becoming more conservative, and McGovern needs a base like Northampton to keep his progressive votes coming.
Well, every district has to be equal in population, so the population changes out here also play a role. It is really difficult to draw a Republican district in Massachusetts. You would have to draw a wild spiral and essentially do a partisan gerrymander if you wanted to draw even one Republican seat. Now, that's not fair to the 35% of people in the state of Massachusetts who would like to see a member. But the president is wrong to call that gerrymandering. Now, my guess would be that Congressman Neal did not enjoy having Northampton as part of his district.
Right.
And Congressman McGovern would happily take that off of his hands. Was some sort of a deal struck there? Wouldn't surprise me one bit.
It should also be mentioned that in the most recent census, Congressman Neal lost the hill towns, which were literally taking out full-page ads in the newspaper saying, where is our congressman? How come Congressman Neal hasn't had any meetings, listening sessions in our area at all in recent memory? And now that is part of Congressman Jim McGovern's district.
Because when districts are non-competitive, your member of Congress does not have to listen to you at all.
So you should be appreciative if you're in the 2nd Congressional District about how many listening sessions Congressman Jim McGovern does do and how he makes himself available on this show,
Very
amongst
true.
other places, every single week.
And today I am him.
And today, David Daley is him, and we are talking about gerrymandering. And of course, I mean, the big gerrymandering story begins with Texas. In the recent news cycle. And it's the Texas Dems fled and are now back in the state. Tell us what
Under police watch.
Yeah, tell us what your take is on what has gone on in Texas. Worth noting that you wrote a piece for the Boston Globe about your opinion about what happened in Texas. Worth a read. I mentioned it with Congressman McGovern last time he was on the show.
The backdrop for all of this, right, is that there's a midterm election next year, and Republicans have 219 seats in the House. Democrats have 216. Usually the election at the midterms is bad for the party that's in power, so Democrats expect to gain seats. So what happened in Texas is Donald Trump called the governor and said, I want 5 more seats drawn out of Texas. Currently a 25-13 Republican map there. Trump said, there's more Republicans. Draw me 5 more. Very, very rare to do a mid-decade redraw. Very rare to have the President of the United States call lawmakers and demand it. But the entire purpose of this is to try to give Republicans an additional boost ahead of the midterm elections. If you have an 8-seat advantage, better than having a 3-seat cushion.
You said it's rare because it's usually based on the census, which is every 10 years.
10 years.
And we're in the middle of that 10-year period. Has it ever happened before that there had to be a redistricting? And were there good reasons to do it between censuses?
Usually the only time you see a new map in the middle of a decade is when a court has thrown out the old map as either a partisan or a racial gerrymander. It doesn't usually happen that lawmakers take a second crack at the map for political purposes in the middle of a decade. You could go back to 2003 when, once again, it was done by Texas. But otherwise, this is pretty rare. There's a good reason why we redistrict. The purpose of redistricting is to equalize population across a state so that there's an equal number of people living in every district. But when politicians gerrymander, by taking advantage of the redistricting process, what they're trying to do is to build an additional layer of unfairness into something that is designed to really equal things out. And whenever they can get away with that, they are proving very willing to do so. This has really set off a gerrymandering apocalypse across the country.
How much of this is tied to the loss of the Voting Rights Act?
Your first book that we mentioned, Rat is all about redistricting, but your second book, Anti-Democratic, is about, like I said, the sequel, because it is a long game that they're playing to dismantle this Voting Rights Act.
Both of these topics really come together, because this is about holding political power, and this is about the right trying to hold political power, and it is about trying to block a multiracial nation from being a multiracial democracy. If you look at what the Supreme Court has done, I would argue in 2 crucial cases, they have accelerated, exacerbated, and incentivized exactly the extreme partisan gerrymandering we are seeing right now that is so deeply anti-democratic and so dangerous. In the Shelby County case back in 2013, John Roberts authored a 5-4 decision that essentially said, we fixed racism. We don't need the Voting Rights Act any longer. The states that have been under preclearance and have been forced to get approval from the government before they do anything to their maps or their election laws, all good now. You are off of probation. And they immediately jumped into action and showed that maybe things had not changed in the South the way that the Chief Justice...
They pulled a Hegseth?
They pulled a Hegseth, yes. And then there was a second case in 2019, and this was a case from North Carolina called Rucho versus Common Cause. And this was a case about partisan gerrymandering. what the court said, again in a 5-4 decision written by Roberts, was that partisan gerrymandering was a political issue, that the courts could not do anything about it. Now, the U.S. Supreme Court is more than happy to jump into political issues all of the time, usually when it favors the chosen political party of the conservative supermajority. And in this case, what was so terrible about this decision was it came at a moment in which federal courts around the country, judges appointed by presidents of both parties, looked at extreme gerrymanders drawn by Democrats in Maryland, by Republicans in Ohio, Wisconsin, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and they said, we have the tools to fix this. We're judges. We know how to do this. And more importantly, if we don't do it, nobody will, because otherwise the politicians are in charge. So someone has to check that on behalf of the voters. And John Roberts said, nah. Really what that set off, it's like that scene in Ghostbusters where they are forced to turn off the containment packs.
Yeah.
I mean, what happens when you turn off the containment packs? All of the evil spirits lurch out. And so we had a 2021 redistricting cycle that was just an orgy of partisan gerrymandering. I can say that on this show,
Yes,
I think.
you can.
Yes.
Right? And Democrats got away with it in Illinois and in Maryland, and there was no one to stop them in New Mexico or Oregon. And Republicans, who already had a big advantage on this from the decade before, kept going in Florida, Tennessee, North Carolina, Ohio, a number of other states. And in the states that had been covered by preclearance, that had previously been forced to show their maps to the government, Arizona, Texas, they no longer had to do so. And so there is nothing right now to stop what's happening because John Roberts said not necessary.
And the voters can't stop it either, because if these districts are redrawn in certain ways, voters who are now a part of those new districts possibly can't make it to their polling places, possibly don't have ID for those polling places, which they didn't necessarily need before. It's detrimental on a lot of levels.
Not to mention the new movement afoot from the White House as of this week, saying that they're going to try to end mail-in ballots, which was making it another more accessible way to vote if you had a hard time voting on. So there is a movement afoot to try to make it harder and harder to vote.
Yes.
Let's take a quick break here, and we will talk more about what potential solutions there could be to this problem with the author from Haydenville, David Daley, behind the books Rat, which I just keep saying so that I can hear the Bjork squeal over and over again, and his new book, Anti-Democratic, which criticizes the Roberts Court and says this is really the long game that's been going on since the Reagan administration to try to seriously impede voting rights in this country.
You're listening to The Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
Welcome back to the Fabulous 413. In lieu of Congressman Jim McGovern and McGoverning with McGovern, which will return next week, please send your questions, thefab413 at nepm.org.
We're looking at our democracy and gasping.
Yes, and we acknowledge the email that you sent earlier this week, Demilitarize Western Mass, that's asking for an editorial from our show about the assassination of journalists in Gaza. We are very much opposed. We could not say stronger. We think killing people is bad, and killing journalists because they're journalists is bad.
Is extra bad.
So that while we are not a show that does a lot of editorials, I hope that suffices.
Thanks for giving my address.
It's Haydenville author David Daley behind the books Rat, which that's a Bjork squeal, so that we can bleep that book title out, and Anti-Democratic. Both books have to do with access to voting, specifically the first book with gerrymandering, which is a hot topic right now.
And our fault.
Yeah. It began in Massachusetts, named after a former governor of Massachusetts, and looking like a salamander. That's where we get the portmanteau of gerrymander. We are not, according to you, doing gerrymandering in the Bay State right now, but California is thinking about gerrymandering right now. And you did mention when the Supreme Court took off the guardrails for gerrymandering, Democratic states and Republican states both have been doing it. Is this the strategy? Is this the way forward? Because Republicans are doing it in Texas, Gavin Newsom should do it in California?
Gerrymandering is bad for voters no matter where it takes place, and it would be a shame if California scuttled its gold standard independent commission because Texas is behaving in this way. It's understandable, certainly, right? Because whenever you have a national map that's made up of individual state maps, if you change things in Texas, it has national consequences. It affects things everywhere. So I certainly understand why Democrats in California are looking there and saying we can come up with 5 seats to counter what Texas is doing. It's a race to the bottom, but sometimes when people are throwing mud at you, you end up getting covered in it as well. The trouble for Democrats is that this is a bad political strategy, not just because it's anti-democratic and bad for voters and goes against the messaging that they've offered up for the last dozen years, but because the numbers just don't work. Like politically, it's a dumb tactic because Texas and California might counter each other out, but the Republicans aren't going to stop in Texas. They're going to go on to Ohio, where there's 2 seats. They're going to go to Missouri and Indiana after that. Florida, Ron DeSantis already says he's going to look at 5 seats. I don't think you can get 5, but he could probably get 2. And if Republicans want to keep going after that, they could go to New Hampshire, Kansas, Kentucky, Tennessee, Georgia, North Carolina. Democrats are sort of stuck because they've already taken all of the seats that they can grab out of Illinois. State court in Maryland already said no to an 8-0 map. That's going to stay 7-1. The governor of Oregon, where it's a 5-1 Democratic map, says she's not going to go for 6-0. Democrats are sort of out of ammunition, so they keep talking about how they're going to fight fire with fire, but they're carrying a birthday candle and singing happy birthday.
And to be entirely partisan about it, it seems like a lazy tactic on their end. The point of this is to attempt to appeal to voters by your platform and the things that you're offering that are good for the people of your community. By just redrawing the map and not engaging with the people who need to be your voters, that seems like maybe the wrong thing to go about doing.
If you keep disenfranchising voters, though, you could have a positive message and still end up losing. It does seem like Republicans will do whatever it takes to win at all costs. Democrats sometimes try to play fairly and love to lose.
And here we are. You would think the Democrats would have some actual issues to run on right now, that they might actually be interested.
There's a literal pile of
in going out
issues.
there
We have
and talking about
some of them already today.
We certainly have. But what it comes down to, in many ways, is just math. If this is the Democratic strategy to counter gerrymandering, it will lose. Democrats cannot gerrymander their way out of the gerrymandering problem. They don't have enough opportunities or targets to do so. They're going to have to persuade voters and use actual politics. There's still 15 or 16 targetable swing districts: New York, Virginia, Pennsylvania, 2 in Iowa, 1 in Wisconsin, a couple in Arizona. Democrats are going to have to find a way to actually organize and go out and win those seats because they cannot gerrymander their way out of this. And it's only going to get worse. You know, I mean, I feel like my job here is to say it's only going to get worse.
Nice.
In 2030, after the next census, we're going to do reapportionment. And there have already been some early estimates of what's going to happen in reapportionment when we reallocate all the congressional seats by state. California is going to lose 4 seats. New York is going to lose 2 seats. There's going to be seats lost probably in Rhode Island, in Michigan, in Illinois, in Minnesota. These are blue seats. And where are these seats going? They're going to Texas, to Arizona, to Georgia, to North Carolina, and Florida. Oh, by the way, there's electoral college votes attached to each of these seats as well. So the road to the White House for Democrats gets more difficult in 2032. But also, if Democrats think that they can just gerrymander California and New York and hold Congress this way, there's going to be 6 fewer seats from those states in a couple of years. So at some point, they're going to have to find a way to win elections in these states where they can't currently do so, or else.
I'm curious about the ties of this into the current issues of federal overreach. Maybe I say this because I just came back from the D.C. area, but there is something troubling about this connection of putting federal agents in places where they generally aren't necessarily supposed to go, and a president directly asking for seats in his political party. There is something troubling about that current connection, which is why every time you mention 2030, I'm like, do we make it that far?
Right. Well, I think you've got your finger on the important question, and I think we have to connect all of the things we're talking about, which includes what we were talking about, mail-in voting, and what the president has said there about trying to eliminate that.
Which inherently is the disenfranchisement of folks with disabilities, too.
Right.
100%.
Right at its core.
Yep.
Let alone Native American communities in Arizona and Utah or North Dakota that use mail-in voting almost entirely. I think that what's happening in Washington, D.C. right now is a dress rehearsal for what we might see on Election Day 2026. I don't think it is a stretch in this moment to say that we will see federal troops and ICE agents in masks outside of election precincts in Atlanta and Detroit and Philadelphia and Milwaukee with the goal of, and I can't believe I'm using this phrase in the United States of America, but here I am, militarized voter suppression. This is really where we are, and it's going to intimidate people from coming out, especially if you can't mail in a ballot and you have to show up in one of these states in a long line under the watchful eyes of the National Guard from some red state and an ICE agent who won't identify himself.
David Daley.
I'm really fun at birthday parties.
We're going to let you end on a positive note. But before we get to that, is there a feasible political solution to this problem that exists?
You're saying if I was king instead of my current role of Jim McGovern.
Yeah.
Yes, there is a really obvious solution to this. And perhaps things are going to get so bad that we'll actually have the national conversation we need to about a national solution to this national problem. And the answer is proportional representation for the U.S. House. The answer is something called the Fair Representation Act that Congressman McGovern has actually been a co-sponsor of, along with Jamie Raskin from Maryland, Don Beyer from Virginia. And what it would do is it would replace our current system of single-member districts in which how the lines are drawn dictate winners and losers for a decade with larger multi-member districts that you can't gerrymander and proportional representation within each of those districts so that Democrats, Republicans, Independents are represented everywhere. So from the state of Massachusetts, if you were to draw three-member seats, you would have probably 6 Democrats, 2 Republicans, maybe an independent. Mm-hmm. This is how you fix not only the gerrymandering problem in so many states, but also the geography problem in states like Massachusetts and Tennessee. There's plenty of members of the other party, but they have almost no chance of winning representation. And if we were to do that, right? I mean, I grew up in Connecticut with people like Lowell Weicker and Christopher Shays and moderates who were bridge builders to the other side. And there were plenty of those Democrats from the South and the Midwest in previous times as well. And they've all gone extinct in a system in which competitive districts are just wiped away and everything has become so super partisan. If we make this one simple switch, and you could do this by statute, doesn't even require a constitutional amendment, I think you would suddenly see that every district in America becomes a swing district. And just imagine what our politics could look like then.
In similar fashion, do you think that maybe if that succeeded, if we're able to get something, that simple change, that ranked choice voting perhaps could be next?
Yes. I mean, the advantage of ranked choice voting in a state like Massachusetts is just so clear because it's essentially a one-party state. So primaries here are the only thing that truly matter. General elections, less in doubt. So if 7-8 people jump into a primary, somebody can win right now with 24 or 25% of the vote. With ranked choice, you always have a majority winner. You are allowed to pick first, second, third, and if nobody wins a majority in the first round, the bottom candidate's eliminated, and it turns into an instant runoff until somebody's got 50%. And you have to campaign differently in a ranked choice election. You have to talk to all of the voters. You have to build coalitions. We just saw it at work in New York City, and it was the kind of campaign people had never seen before, right? Mamdani and Brad Lander going on the Colbert Show together, candidates fundraising together, taking bike rides across the city, asking to be each other's first and second choice. It's an entirely new way of thinking about politics, and an entirely better one.
David Daley from Haydenville, the former editor-in-chief of Salon, the author of the books Rat and Anti-Democratic. We started talking about music. What is one of the best shows you've seen this past summer, 2025?
I am super excited for this evening. I'm heading down to New Haven to see Nation of Language, who are terrific. They're the kind of band I really like because they are a new band that sound like old bands.
Nice.
So they are a bunch of Brooklyn hipsters, but they play synth pop like they're in New Order or Yaz or something that is really my recipe. So maybe I'll see you all there.
David Daley, thanks so much for coming back in and giving us a shred of hope in this otherwise anti-democratic times.
Thanks for having me.
Later in the show, we'll hear about an opportunity you will have to potentially experience your favorite show of the summer when we talk with Brian Westbrook about RPM Fest, the heavy music campout in Montague.
But up next, whales and a boat. No, this is not Moby Dick, but the town of Wales, Massachusetts, where members of the Nipmuc tribe are currently nearing the end of creating a canoe-like vessel called a Mashoon.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by the UMass 5 College Credit Union, dedicated to creating access to financial well-being for local people, businesses, and communities. Insured by NCUA, umass5.coop.
We're in Wales.
We're in Wales, yet another international location
Yeah, we're Jonah and Geppetto inside of Wales.
in Massachusetts.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of Wales jokes going on here,
Oh,
but this
no.
has nothing to do with the animal. What's your name?
Ahmed Hood, Executive Director at Norcross Wildlife Foundation.
What is Norcross Wildlife Foundation?
We are a private, nonprofit foundation founded by Arthur Norcross in 1964, and we own 8,000 acres of land that we maintain for wildlife and for people. We have public education programs here and are now engaged with the Nipmuc as part of their cultural revival.
We are amongst some folks from the Nipmuc community, including, let's go over and talk to our buddy from No Loose Braids, Andre Strong Bearheart Gaines Jr., who has been on the show several times and also has been referenced on the show many times because of the work that you had been doing at Jacob's Pillow and other things like that. But what is happening right now is amazing. Set the scene for people who can't see what's happening right now.
Motapanuanin at the Sawas Minikisu Masmata. Good morning. My name's Andre Strong Bearheart from the Nipmuc tribe. The scene is there's a collective group of our family, different intertribal folks who are also here, including the Mohegan tribe. And, we're coming here together to burn out a 24-foot Mashoon, in which some people know as a canoe.
Mashoon, is that the Nipmuc word?
It is. It's a Nipmuc word for canoe.
And is canoe and kayak are both words that are indigenous words too, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, I know that these dugout canoes, as people know them, we know them as Mashoons. So.
Explain to us the process. This is a felled gigantic tree. How big was this tree?
This tree, actually, height-wise, you'd have to ask Norcross that. It was really large, though. It was definitely the largest out of all the dugouts I've made. This is the 7th of them, but it's 41 inches in diameter, and for the log itself is, 26 feet, and we cut it off into 24 feet, yeah.
So this is a huge Mashoon, and the process of creating Mashoon takes days and days and days. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, today is day 5 here, 24-hour burns. It's a collective group of our family, cousins, my nephews, my sister, all of us and friends all coming together to burn out this dugout. And so it's a real community group effort. Like, there's no way me or even a couple of us could do this. It takes a lot of us to do this work.
Somebody's got to tend it at night.
Yeah, 24 hours where you lay logs on top of this giant log, and it slowly but surely burns the hole in the middle that people could sit in and then use this as a water vessel, as a Mashoon, as a canoe.
You've got a large section that's burning, but does it always kind of burn from the front to the back? Because you were telling the folks who were helping you earlier that, the front is basically done.
Yeah, no, the grains in the back are, because it's the trunk here, so they're much tighter. So it's just burning a bit slower back here, mainly also because of the length of it. And so it would burn a bit more balanced if, it wasn't so long, but yeah.
Tell us what you know about the history of Mashoons, specifically with the Nipmuc people of our area.
Traditionally, we didn't have any horses, nor did we have teepees. We burnt out dugout canoes. These were our vessels to move from one tribal territory to the other, or even have runners run from one tribal territory to the other. This is what we've done since time immemorial. We have some even at the bottom of Lake Quincy, that have been documented and things like that. There's different historical societies that have pulled these things up from thousands of years ago, and so this is something that we've done since time immemorial.
Is there tradition that goes around the creation of the Mashoon that you're carrying with you in this creation of the Mashoon here in Wales, Massachusetts today?
Yeah, I'll share this much. My Mashun teacher, it's important to speak on them and to acknowledge them. His name is Darius Coombs out of Mashpee Wampanoag, and so that's who helped guide us in our first dugout. And since then, we've been holding that tradition that what he has shared with us in that way, in a good way, to the rest of our community. So that's what's important, is speaking about your teachers and speaking about those who before us had continued on these traditions and ways of being.
It seems like it's such a long process that it seems like a big, and you had mentioned you couldn't do it alone, a big community gathering. It feels like a special time for people to gather.
It's really a special time. What happens is it creates a space for people to heal, a space for people to put that puzzle piece back inside of them. We have a word for it in our language. It's called tukish, and it means to wake up. And when we set space like this, what happens is people's spirits can tukish. They can wake up by stepping into an environment like this and being able to see who we are traditionally and be who we are in today's day and age.
When you do Mashun burnings now, are they always open to the public so people can see how this process works?
No, they're not. It is currently at the moment, because this is in collaboration with Norcross Wildlife Sanctuary, also Nipmuc Cultural Hunt and Fish, that is run by Jose Ite Santana. And so this is a collective effort to bring public education, but also cultural revitalization within our community and sister communities.
Are we making the process take longer because we keep interrupting?
You are carving.
Absolutely. I'm trying to carve right now. I also want to say hello to the other relatives who are coming in right now, and I can't because I'm talking on a microphone.
All right, we'll let you get back to it, Andre. We'll go bother some other people now.
Okay. Thank you.
To Tracy Ramos, actually. Hey, Tracy, this is Monty Belmonte from Fabulous 413.
I know who you are.
Oh,
Actually, do
no.
you know Fred Hooven?
Yes, I
Yeah.
do.
He's
Khalees
in
is
my
in a band
band.
with Fred Hooven.
The name. No, I used to work with Fred.
Oh,
so
cool.
he was the director of public health at AIC.
Yeah.
I worked with him and Dana. Yeah.
So, he
Yeah,
plays trumpet for us.
I know he does. I know Fred very well. He's great.
We missed your name. What's your name?
My name is Tracy Ramos.
And tell us your relationship to this Mashun burn going on here.
Well, I'm Nipmuc.
Yeah.
Andre is my cousin.
Okay.
I also work with No Loose Braids. I guess as far as a role, I don't really have a role. My role is whatever is needed. I enjoy talking with people, meeting with people, just answering questions, and so yeah, whatever that role is, that's what I do.
Are you here because it's a round-the-clock burn to make this happen? Are you here during the whole thing?
I sure am. Last night, this morning I went to bed around 4 a.m. and I woke up at 7, which is probably a lot of hours of sleep. A couple of days ago, probably like day 2, I stayed up for the whole 24 hours. It's an experience. How about that?
Is this your first time, or have you done this before?
Oh no, I have done this before. It's not my
Andre's
first time.
This is his
Yeah.
7th, I think, right?
You're testing me, but yeah, it's something like that. Yeah.
How different does it feel with the public coming in and getting to witness this community happening around them?
So pretty much we have had them open to the public. I think it's important to have those times where people can ask their questions authentically and hopefully respectfully, because there's that aspect to it. But no, I think it's great. We have it open to the public during certain times so that we can then have our time to just enjoy ourselves and be in community. It's been great.
Do you know what is going to happen with this Mashun after it's finished?
Yeah, it's going to be launched
Do you know where and when?
somewhere here, on Norcross lands. And and then eventually how we preserve it over the winter, it'll be then sunk underwater and preserved, yeah.
And that's an incredible method of keeping these things preserved.
Yeah,
They just
I didn't make it up. Our ancestors definitely knew what they were doing.
handed it down,
Yeah.
though.
Yeah, they did. They knew what they were doing. Yeah.
I heard it's going to the ocean.
Yes, eventually. Yes, that is something that he would like to do, is actually get this in the actual salt water to possibly paddle from a sister tribe, all the way up back home
Can you talk about your corn necklace?
Yeah, it's something I made. I'm actually working on one now for my cousin. Yeah, it was actually grown on Pequog Farm, which is where I work. It's Keely Curlis and Noah McDonald here. They have a project called Pequog Farm, and so it's Nipmuc led. There are many of us Nipmucs that actually work there, and it's a food sovereignty project. And we grow our traditional corns. We plant them as a community. We harvest them, which is coming up early October. I think it's the first weekend of October. We're having a corn harvest. And then we dry them out. And then when we're ready to actually use them for something like this, soak them and then use them as a craft. Yeah.
Nice.
We showed up just as everybody was showing up.
It smells so good, first of all.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Ed from Norcross Wildlife Foundation, where this machine is being created. Why is this something that Norcross wanted to be a part of?
Oh, it's an honor for us to be working with the tribe. The tribe is teaching their traditional crafts, trying to bring their community together. And events like this are community gatherings, as you can see right now. And for us, our mission is to work with all our local communities, and the Nipmuc in particular, because land is so important to them. We can help be in service to them to do that. We steward 8,000 acres. Andre, who we've been speaking with, he's been teaching us about thinning out the cedar swamps, makes them healthier, and they use the cedar for their traditional crafts like building homes, weetus. So, it adds traditional ecological knowledge to our own work to help us do what we do better. And honor, it's just an honor to have this group here doing something like this. So we can do that. And then we have school children come all year long learning about the environment, about ecology, getting out in nature. So this is all part of that public service that we do as a nonprofit. A lot of people from our local towns are coming to see this. One guy's been here every day. Some folks are here all day. So it's great to see.
And you got folks chopping the wood on a big stump.
Yeah. And they've been doing that continuously for 5 days. So it is an amazing amount of work. Andre in particular has just been at it the entire time. I've never not seen him here when I come down. So they have to have their crews all night long. So it is for them a very deep cultural experience in addition to just being hard work. And we're hoping they'll put it in one of our ponds. We have several ponds here, and we want to see it floated here for the first time. And we know they would have been doing that 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago on these waters here. So it'll be great to see that reconnection.
So we just met Andre's mother, who is the elder of the family, and Andre handed his mother a small log so she can add it to the fire, which is a beautiful testament to the importance of elders.
And just talking about a lot of his relatives and community and what they do for her and for the community at large, and it's just a beautiful sort of thing to be a part of this and see it all happening. And literally every 20 seconds somebody new comes in and also stops Andre from working, because you gotta greet family when they show up.
I'm glad it wasn't just us.
No.
Oh wow, that's a little microphone you got.
What's your name?
My name is Willow.
You've got a canister here that's smoking. Tell us about this.
Yeah. So we're just burning some cedar, get some smudge going, and it's the best way to burn it is with some coals, because it's not quick to light, but it will over the heat. It's really good. But we're trying to get some fresh cedar so you can smell it a little bit better. But yeah, so we'll just keep this going, keep this place all nice and cleansed, get that good energy flowing, you know what I'm saying?
Hi.
What's your name?
My name is Madawamp Nantai, Larry Man.
You are making sure that it doesn't get too hot or burn too fast by watering it all down.
Yeah, so we're basically watering the sides. So whenever we see any white on the sidewalls, that means it's being burned a little bit too much. So we just kind of spray it just like that.
And somebody is doing this 24 hours a day.
Yeah, literally 24 hours a day. We take shifts and stuff. So 2 days ago, I did the night shift 2 days ago. Got some rest last night. So I'll probably do the night shift tonight. So yeah.
Do you know how many people are rotating doing it?
At least 8-10 people just rotating, sleeping. There's a few people sleeping right now. They're gonna get up later, do the night shift with me. So.
Are you one of the folks who will get to travel in it when it's done?
Oh yeah, we all will. Everyone who's helping out. So I think we're gonna test it in one of these ponds. So this is for freshwater and saltwater. So we'll probably do a Deer Island paddle on this too, bring it out in the ocean.
That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome, guys.
I don't want to distract him. He's got to make sure it doesn't burn too much.
I know. public portion of the Nipmuc Machoon Camp at Norcross Wildlife Foundation Camp in Wales is officially over, but we will do our best to let you know if and when the public might be invited for when the Machoon takes its first voyage.
And thanks again to Andre Strong Bear Hart Gaines Jr. and other members of his Nipmuc family that we spoke with, and to Ed Hood from Norcross for inviting us. And now I lay me down to sleep. Pray the Lord my soul to keep. If I die before I wake, may I wake at the heavy music campout happening next weekend.
It'll definitely wake you up. We'll talk with one of the founders of this marriage of metal and making camp in Montague, Brian Westbrook.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5.
The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Northeast Solar in Hatfield, offering personalized solar energy solutions and ongoing customer care, proudly serving communities throughout the Pioneer Valley. Northeast-solar.com.
Welcome back to the Fabulous 413. It's the time of year where Western Mass gets extra loud and brings the heavy music community out to the woods for 3 days of music from musicians near and far as a proverbial black bow on the end of summer. RPM Fest happens this year at the tail end of August, Labor Day weekend, Friday through Sunday, August 29th through 31st.
We are joined by one of RPM Fest's founders, Brian Westbrook. Brian has been a drummer in rock and metal bands and joined thrash stalwarts Lich King in 2009, who became a mainstay in the regional metal scene, and whose concert promotion company PDP Productions merged with Promoterhead Entertainment to create RPM Fest, the heavy music campout. He's also a mainstay doing sound and stage managing at festivals across New England, including Green River Festival, Newport Folk, been at Newport Jazz, and others. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
It is always a pleasure to talk about this because it is the one festival that I have gotten my partner to be excited about and wants to go. My partner is a giant introvert, does not want to be around crowds, does not particularly enjoy music. However, RPM Fest comes around and they're like, oh, are we going this year? And I'm like, where did you come from?
And how long has this festival been going on there, Brian?
So we started the festival in 2014. It was originally in my parents' backyard in Greenfield, and then Greenfield decided we were not going to do that anymore.
You guys are just too darn loud.
Probably a blessing in disguise because we ended up finding our new home at the Millers Falls Rod and Gun Club over in Montague, and we've been there since 2018.
And I was talking to the fifth Beatle of the show, Jerry, who works upstairs, when you were coming in, waiting, saying, oh, we're going to talk about the RPM Fest. He's like, why do I know about that? And I was like, I'll tell you why you know. It's lawn signs. Mm-hmm. RPM Fest, heavy music camp out lawn signs. Drive anywhere in the valley right now. So you'll find an RPM heavy music camp out sign somewhere, and it really is effective at putting your name out there so people know what it's
great.
Yeah. It's fun, too, that it's like, a lot of music festivals have camping, but you don't call it the Green River Music Festival Campout. So the fact that you call it the Heavy Music Campout gives it more of a camping vibe.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, heavy music festivals, but the camping has been a very, very large part of the festival. So, once we landed on the camp out part of it, we decided, that's the branding. That's what we got to go with.
Yeah, I love
That's how we set it apart.
I feel like in conjunction with that, we should talk about some of the non-music things that are happening at this festival because there's a lot of wicked cool things happening. You've got a burlesque show. Our friend Perry Von Vicious.
Woo! Yes. The Human Monster Truck!
The Human Monster Truck.
And Pro Wrestling Grind are going to be there on the Sunday. You've got a fashion show. You've got video games. You've got karaoke. Your off-stage entertainment is as rich and varied as the things that you can see on stage.
Also yoga, which is not something you often associate with heavy music.
But something you might need after being in a circle pit for a couple of sets.
And it's early in the day, so you're going to ease into it.
Yep. Start off your day with the yoga, and then we actually have a fitness class right after that as well.
You must be well fit because playing the drums. Yes.
Look at me.
No. I've listened to your band, though, play Lich King, and you playing the drums. That is a workout.
Oh, that is
especially the speed at which a thrash metal drummer must play.
Yeah.
It's a full body experience.
I'm back there chugging Gatorades during the set because that's a full body workout. That's for sure.
And your band is also playing on Saturday the 30th.
Yes,
on the main stage.
It's Lich King's only show of the year, in fact.
Whoa.
We're so spread out throughout New England. Our guitarist Nick lives in Indiana.
That's not New England.
That's not New England. The rest of us are all spread out through New England. So it's hard for us to get together and do anything, but we're making it a point to do it for RPM Fest because that's near and dear to our hearts.
We're talking with Brian Westbrook about this year's RPM Fest happening on August 29th, 30th, and 31st, right at the end of the month. The thing I noticed most about the bands on this particular list is that A, there's way more women. B, there's a lot more people of color amongst the bands that are making up this year's lineup.
That is something it's not something that we make a big deal about publicly, but we definitely make a concerted effort to, bring diversity to the RPM Fest lineup.
A band that I'm excited about, Witching.
Oh, Witching's incredible, yes. One of the few repeat bands, because they played last year. But yeah, Philly-based band, predominantly female group, and just hard to describe. Black metal tinged, but also some like psychedelic elements, very spacey and really cool stuff.
Differentiate for the listener what black metal is versus metal versus maybe what your band identifies as, which
How
is
long
thrash.
do we have?
I mean,
Because your band has a song about disparaging black metal.
Yeah, I know we get that a lot. I mean, so like historically, black metal is very lo-fi, very fast-paced. Usually involves the bands with painted up in corpse paint, and usually a lot of Satan worshipping imagery, that sort of stuff. A little more over the top in terms of the theatrical elements of that side of things.
Your band is thrash, so explain to what your idea of what thrash is.
Thrash. The big four thrash bands, if you're trying to relate in terms of the genre: Metallica, Slayer, Megadeth, Anthrax.
Mount Thrashmore.
Mount Thrashmore. There you go. Listen to any of those four bands, you get a pretty good idea of what thrash is.
Has anyone ever said Mount Thrashmore before?
I'm sure somebody had. I'm sure it's probably been
If
done,
not,
but I like
I'm
it.
claiming it. Brian Westbrook, who is one of the founders of RPM Fest and the Heavy Music Campout, which is happening the last weekend of August, I would be remiss if I didn't get your take on the passing of Ozzy Osbourne this summer.
Yeah, absolutely devastating. I was really fortunate enough to see Ozzy back at Ozfest 2006, which was at the Xfinity Center, which I think might have been the Tweeter Center at the time, out in Mansfield.
Yeah, it's Great Woods
Yes.
forever.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, only got to see Ozzy that one time. So obviously a absolutely devastating loss. One of the founding fathers of metal as it is today.
Not on Mount Thrashmore, but definitely a founding father of metal.
Absolutely.
Britain's got its own mountain.
Yes, for
with
sure.
its own founders.
Yes.
RPM Fest is sort of a labor of love. Like there's volunteers, people working it, but also like volunteer armies that help make it all run. If people want to get involved and help this sausage get made, how do they contact you? How do they find out?
Best place is to go to rpmfest.org/volunteers. We got a sign up forum there. Our volunteer schedule is live. You can just sign right up and pick shifts in any sort of department you want to. Whatever fits your skill set, we welcome any and all help. The entire fest is volunteer run. Can't make it happen without all these great people helping us.
If you like yoga, Magic the Gathering, drag bingo, karaoke,
Burlesque.
video games, burlesque, pro wrestling, but especially heavy music, the RPM Fest Heavy Music Campout, I think, is something that you might want to check out this last weekend of August.
You have lots and lots of events that aren't necessarily music, as we mentioned, but will you ever have like a musician speed dating session so that if people are missing, are trying to get a project of their own together, but feel like there's a little something missing, or like in general, does this festival kind of engender new bands? Do you see that happening?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, this is definitely a big community event. I'm sure that there have been bands formed from relationships forged at this event. There's no doubt in my mind. I can't think of anybody in particular, but just the number of people I've met through this festival, it would be impossible for a band not to have formed. I know people whose first date was at RPM Fest back in 2014, and they're now married.
Babies were conceived in the tents at the fest. I don't know about that.
I mean,
cannot confirm.
Possibly.
I prefer not to think about that.
A heavy metal baby was born.
Lots and lots of heavy metal Geminis.
Yeah. Well, Brian Westbrook, who is one of the founders of RPM Fest, always a delight seeing you in and about the music scene here, moving things and making the music happen in your backstage role, but especially this Heavy Music Campout that you've been a big part of for all these years, bringing to Franklin County. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Pick your favorite child. Who are you most excited to see?
Oh, no. I'm going to go with Horrendous. The second I went through the RPM playlist and put them on, I was hooked. Wild, progressive, thrashy death metal, just really cool stuff. Looking forward to their set.
There is a cool 2025 RPM Fest Spotify playlist if you're interested in getting a sampling too.
rpmfest.org/Spotify.
Right on.
On the next Fabulous 413, East Hampton is a hotbed of arts activity.
We'll check out one way that the city is encouraging more art to be made when we chat with Zoe Fielding of City Space about this year's Pay It Forward grant recipients.
And hear from one of those recipients who'll perform in the Blue Room as part of their residency, Justina Thrower.
And you might know that Western Mass was a catalyst for the abolishment of slavery in the Bay State.
Professor Usman Power Green talks with us about that legacy and an event celebrating Elizabeth Mumbet Freeman Day that you can attend this weekend at Ashley House in Sheffield.
I'm Khalees Smith.
I'm Monty Belmonte.
Talk to you tomorrow on the Fabulous 413.